Next contestant, he has a heart of a lion, and I doubt if anybody trained harder than this guy. When you do a set, you do one for mama, the babies, everybody. This guy's a first class and a monster at 260 pounds, Mr. Dorian Yates.
I remember Flex Wheeler once said, I never saw Dorian as beatable.
When Dorian walked on the stage, we never saw that. What the hell is this?
It's not possible to be training harder or more consistently or more dedicated than me, because I couldn't give a single ounce more. I trudged through that snow up past my knees to the gym, and I thought to myself, you know what, those fuckers in California right now, they're driving their Porsche, their Ferrari out in the sun, going to the beach. I'm here trudging through the snow, and they're gonna pay for that.
Many people play the game. Some go on to win it, but very few completely change it. The six-time Mr. Olympia, Dorian Yates, unleashed a ruthless domination from 1992 to 1997 and ushered in what we know now as the mass monster era that still influences the sport to this very day. The moment he stepped onto the 1992 Olympia stage, bodybuilding was transformed once and for all. Nicknamed The Shadow, Dorian maintained a low profile in England each year before emerging on stage in the United States looking bigger and leaner than ever. With a combination of size and conditioning that were never seen before, he left competitors fighting for second place for 6 years. But his domination wasn't without controversy. It seemed like no one could take him down, even when competing with a torn bicep and a severed tricep. Going from a small gang in the streets of England, being jailed and almost becoming homeless, to becoming the man who single-handedly changed the trajectory of bodybuilding forever. This is the story of the original mass monster.
I've got a question which not been answered as far as I know, which is about your name. So your name is Dorian Andrew
Yates.
Yates.
What was your relationship like with your mom, and what was your relationship like with your dad?
Well, I was probably closer to my mom because my mom was there on a daily basis. My dad was in and out. He wasn't really at home that much. But after my father passed away, I'm sure that was a driving factor to succeed. So I lost my father when I was quite young. Then we moved to Birmingham just with my mom, and she married a new guy, and he also died quite quickly. So it was a pretty tragic time. I'm a boy who's just hit puberty. I'm 13, and my male role model now is gone. So I didn't realize at the time, but looking back now, I was upset, I was angry, and nobody was taking care of me. And that's at least the way I felt. That's when I learned to really contain and hide my emotions, because I remember I didn't want to go to my father's funeral. I don't want anyone to see me crying. So I told my mom I don't want to come to the funeral. And people used to ask when I won the Mr. Olympia, why are you not jumping up and down and screaming and crying and like, wow, so happy, this lifetime goal, you've achieved it. I think inside I was doing that, but outside I was not doing that, because I learned to hide these emotions. If you look very carefully, I think when I won the first one, I'm actually biting my lip, which is kind of to suppress these emotions which are coming out, which I learned this, so it's like default mode to go into. I think my dad dying young, my mom not really being able to cope with me or with my anger and confusion and everything like that. That was definitely a driving force, and I had to grow up and look after myself pretty quick. I was 16 and I was out on the street living at friends' houses or something, and get my own little place, and I got to look after myself. There's nobody else that I can fall back on. Being a teenager with my mates, we got into a bit of trouble, and at 18 years old I was sent to a detention center for a few months. And I'd already done a little bit of weights before when I was at school, and I'd done karate, and I'd done all the push-ups and squats in my room. I had a ball worker and all this, so I was already interested in that and physical. And when I was in this detention center, part of the process is hard physical exercise, which a lot of the kids didn't like, but I loved it, and it was something for me to outlet, being in this place, to kind of escape for a while. There were 300 guys in there, and I quickly realized I got the best physique in here, like naturally, and I'm pretty much the strongest guy in here. So this is something I can do. I just knew if I put my energy into something positive, I would get something positive back. Maybe I'll win some contest. Ooh, maybe I can open my own gym one day or something. That was how it started. There was a couple of lads that were probably bigger and heavier than me, but I was as strong as them, and I already had what you could term as a physique-looking body. I had good abdominals, I had a good shape. So the foundation of a good physique was there. And even the prison officers noticed that. You know, when you get out of here, go and do powerlifting because you could be a good powerlifter. But I already knew that I wasn't interested in powerlifting, I was interested in bodybuilding because I've already seen the magazines from Joe Weider and I was familiar with some of the bodybuilders. So I was like, that's the route I want to go. Because I lost my dad and I didn't have male role model, the guys in the magazines, or at least what was projected in the magazines from the guys, they became almost my surrogate fathers. When I came from the detention centre and I didn't have anywhere to stay, the city housed me. So they gave me a council flat on a very notorious council estate in Birmingham at the time. And they offered me this place because not many people accept it and go there. That's where I was living for probably 5 years when I started training. But fortunately, I was successful very quickly. After a year and a half training, I went to compete in a novice contest. Absolutely, like, I didn't know at the time, I just thought this is where I need to be, but now I look back, it's like, there's no comparison. I won the contest so easily. Then I had like judges and officials. There was one guy, Ron Davis, who was, he used to judge at the Mr. Olympia, and he was the head of the federation in England, and he was there, and he was, Dorian, nice to, where are you from? I'm like, from Birmingham. What are you doing in the novice class? Well, I'm a novice, it's my first contest, so, well, you should be in the heavyweight class. No, I'm not good enough for that yet. He's not good enough. He started laughing like he's not good enough. Wow. Kid, you're the best heavyweight we've seen in this country. I'm like, no, this guy and this guy, surely they're better than me. No. So we want you to come and compete in the World Games, like next week on the British team as a heavyweight. And I didn't want to go because I knew I wasn't ready to win that yet. But they kind of persuaded me to go on the team. So I went and then I got 7th place there in 13 guys. And these were like the best amateurs in the world. And then I won the British Championship the following year. I remember winning the British Championship in 1986. Then there's 2,000 people there screaming and blowing air horns and cheering and getting my picture taken. I'm going to be in the magazines. But I came home and there's no TV crew waiting here for me. There's no fanfare. I'm back to my same block that I was living in. I got no carpet on the floor. I don't have a proper bed. I just got a mattress. Mm-hmm. I don't have any car because every penny that I earned from my work and it's just going for food, training, catching the bus back and forward, whatever. I don't have any money for a car. So here I am, back in my same apartment, mm-hmm. with my trophy, still in the same situation. So I said, all right, I'm British champion. Technically, I can compete as pro. I'm going to Night Champions, my first pro show. If I don't get in the top 5, I'm finished. I'm finished with competitive bodybuilding. When I went to my first pro show, which was in Night of Champions in New York, came out and did my posing, and it was quiet, and then slowly the whole audience started going, Dorian, Dorian, Dorian. They must have been like, who's this guy, who's this guy, who's this guy? Yeah. I got second at that contest to Mohammed Benaziza, and Weider must have seen something in me that was unique because I got invited out to Venice, California to do the shoots for the Weider magazines at the Gold's Gym, and that's every bodybuilder's dream at that point. And then Vince McMahon from WWE, he started a bodybuilding federation.
The World Bodybuilding Federation flexes its muscles at the first WBF Championship, live June 15 at the Trump Taj Mahal in Atlantic City.
And Tom Platz, who was my hero, one of my heroes, mm-hmm. was like repping, you know, he was the guy that was putting this thing together. And they contacted me and they offered me something like 170 grand a year to go and be with that federation.
That's money at that time.
I had nothing.
Yeah,
I had nothing.
Crazy.
And then, you know, Mr. Olympia is every bodybuilder's dream. So I would have to give up on that dream to go with the Wrestling Federation. So I made a tough decision and I said, I'm going to turn down this money because I got faith in myself. I will get that money and more if I stick to this path and I win Mr. Olympia. I got second in the first Night of Champions, and then I came back the following year and I won that, and I did improved. And then people and myself were thinking, I could maybe take this guy. And I had to change my mental approach from, wow, it's Lee Haney's Mr. Olympia, to like, no, hold on. It's 2 arms, 2 legs, lifts weights, and one thing I can guarantee, he does not train as hard as me.
Fantastic, I'm on top of the world now.
How on top? We looking for 8?
Well, we have to take it a year at a time.
By the 1991 Olympia, Lee Haney had racked up 7 Sandow trophies, and it was just assumed he would easily secure an 8th before retiring.
Might be my first Mr. Olympia contest, and people might think, well, he's going to be overawed by the occasion and intimidated. There's no way, you know, I'm prepared psychologically. I believe in myself, and, you know, I'm coming to show everybody what I've done.
But once the prejudging started, 29-year-old Dorian Yates made it clear that he wouldn't just hand the win over to the veteran.
Who were surprised this afternoon in prejudging?
Well, the rumor has it that Dorian Yates from England is pound for pound the only one that could really take it from Lee.
And we'll see if he can do that. So we'll take you inside the Dolphin with the 1991 Mr. Olympia Championships right after this.
Dorian was making his Mr. Olympia debut that year and walked on stage with hints of over-the-top size that would later go on to define the mass monster era. And Haney quickly found himself with some real competition breathing down his neck.
I used to be the last one to take off my tracksuit backstage, so I'll be playing little mind games because I know everyone's waiting to see, so let them wait. So you're not really thinking about what you're going to do on stage. Your energy is being taken by me. Lee Haney did it to me, I remember. He said in a podcast that he used to do this. He said, I did it to Dorian, but I don't know if it affected him or not. But it did a little bit. I was here, he was over there, and I was just happened to look up and he just took his tracksuit off and got his back out, and his back was super thick. I was like, oh shit.
The Englishman came out to the biggest cheer in the contest. Since his Night of Champions win, he's packed on another 5 pounds. The 240-pound final product being noticeably improved by more delt width and thickness, more upper back thickness, larger arms and chest, with a taper improved by a more streamlined waist and considerably thicker lats. The audience cheered its way through each compulsory pose, and the anticipation for him and Haney to mix it man-to-man grew with each pose. They were so far ahead of anybody else that the judges only kept the two of them on stage for the title fight.
So Lee Haney is Mr. Olympia. When I'm starting out, right? I saw him guest pose in England. It's inspiration, big guy. So I'm a fan, basically. But now I'm going to go compete against him. So I realized I can't be a fan anymore, man. I got to get a little bit ruthless here. Maybe I can beat this guy. Maybe I'm better than him. Why not? Sure, he doesn't train as hard as you. So there's a guy in New York telling me a story, which I found out later is total bullshit. So he's like, you got to watch out for Haney on stage. He's a bully. I say, what do you mean? He'll try to intimidate you. He'll bang into you a little bit. He might tread on your toe or something. He just want to bully you and on the stage, man. I'm like, what? He's not doing that shit to me, man. I'm getting all psyched up and everything. I'm psyched. I'm on the stage and there's a call out. It's just me and Haney, which is unusual. 2 guys, right? So it's obvious this is a showdown, right? For first and second. So I'll start to walk out and Lee's give me the, friendly smile. I'll give him a stone face. Then I've walked out and you come and you go in this kind of relaxed, semi-relaxed pose. So I went into the semi-relaxed pose and on purpose, I properly banged my elbow into him. Yeah, so I banged into him and I did it a couple of times to let him know, And then in the pose down, Lee Haney does this pose where he brings out his arms like this. And I was behind and I know he kind of got me out of the corner of his eye and he clipped me with his knuckle. I think it was like, okay, have some back.
Even though Dorian won the muscularity round, Haney topped him in posing and symmetry and went on to win his record-breaking 8th Mr. Olympia title.
8-9. Mr. Olympia, your wheel brings the Lee Haney.
Proving his supporters right, Dorian placed second in a closely fought battle with Haney, an act that, upon Haney's retirement from bodybuilding, signaled the Englishman's arrival as the man to beat in 1992.
To come out of nowhere as you did and to get second in your first Olympia was very unheard of.
At that point, yeah.
Yeah, people like Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler, so many other big bodybuilders took years to climb the ladder, whereas you just rocketed top 2 immediately, and then the guy who you pushed for the title was like, right, that's enough of that then.
And next year, bodybuilding was about to witness a transformation no one could have foreseen. In 1991, Dorian had met the man who changed his approach to training.
Someone introduced me to Mike when I went out to Venice. Mike was one of my heroes when I started. Physique, I liked his physique, was powerful, strong, rugged, but it was more about the intellect.
The most gracious and the greatest of all, Dorian Yates. Apparently he was motivated to start training as a result of having seen my photographs, having read my articles, bought and read my books. He was brighter than the average bodybuilder. He came to understand the theory of high-intensity training, recognized its validity, used it, and went on to win British championships, Night of Champions.
I had the theory of HIT training from Arthur Jones, from Mike Mensa. So the theory appealed to me because it was logical, and that's the way my brain works. It works in logic and mathematics and straight lines.
In fact, Dorian was so analytical that he had all of his workouts written down since 1983.
I've got every single workout that I ever did from 1983 to 1997 written down. And there's notes underneath. How much weights did I use? What exercise? How many reps did I do? And then every month I would do a check. I would set goals for the next month.
And before the 1992 Olympia, he began to adopt HIT principles and trained with Mike Mentzer at Gold's Gym. A clear fan of HIT, Dorian took Mike's advice regarding both training intensity and the number of sets needed for growth. Initially, this meant 1 set to absolute failure, which in time he raised to several warm-up sets and then 1 to 2 sets to absolute failure, which was a complete change from the stimulate, don't annihilate ethos that his Olympia predecessor Lee Haney promoted. Dorian's training was so hardcore that some pro bodybuilders like Chris Cormier could barely get through a session with him.
Fucking bitch!
Dorian's insane training intensity was showcased in his iconic Blood and Guts video released later in 1996.
Hi, I'm Dorian Yates, 4 times Mr. Olympia, and this is Blood and Guts, the video. I'm going to take you in my gym and show you how I've trained to be the world's #1. I hope you're ready, because it's going to be rough.
No one had ever put out an authentic bodybuilding workout like that. They were all in little stringers on the beach. And
That's
Dorian...
exactly why I did it. I had a friend who was a photographer, Kevin Horton. I said, Kevin, let's just hire a video filming camera, but I want you to come in and I'm going to train as normal. I don't want you to talk to me. I don't want you to mess about with lights or anything. I just want you to capture the workout and the intensity and the weights and the feeling. And nobody cares about shades and angles and lights. They want to see. And I want people to watch that training video and get pumped up and want to go to the gym.
Now with a dialed-in intense training protocol, and with Haney out of the picture, Dorian was ready to start his Olympia domination.
This year's Mr. Olympia competition will be the hottest competition of all time. And that's saying something, because last year we had a magnificent lineup. This year it's even better.
I feel very pleased with the preparation. I've improved, a lot from last year on every aspect, not only my physique, but presentation and everything like that. So, at the moment I'm feeling really confident, and I can't wait to get up there and show everybody what I've done in the last 12 months.
Dorian stepped on stage in the Helsinki Ice Hall in Finland, weighing roughly 260 pounds with an unprecedented combination of massive size and conditioning, so impressive that people could see his muscle fibers, a level of leanness now known as grainy.
When Dorian walked on the stage, we never saw that. What the hell is this? We never saw that kind of mass, that kind of size.
Dorian changed the game. He ushered in the mass monsters, because no one ever thought Lee Haney was a mass monster. He had the nice shape, but Dorian ushered in something that brought out the bigness and the size, and it was a game changer for sure.
Coming hot on their heels for the 1992 title were Lee Labrada, a former second place in 1990, Sean Ray, who got 3rd and 5th in the previous 2 years, Lou Ferrigno, who was making a comeback after 17 years at 6'5", 290 pounds, and the new kid on the block, Kevin Levrone, who had just won Night of Champions. After the showdown, the top 3 to stand on the podium were Lee Labrada in 3rd place, who had a respectable overall presence but couldn't match the top guys. Dorian's challenger, Kevin Levrone, in 2nd place, who, despite having good aesthetics, well-developed delts, biceps, and chest, was no match for Dorian's muscularity, especially in the back, and lower body. The Shadow easily came in at #1 to confirm the success he had the year before and to finally become Mr. Olympia himself.
This is my dream, a dream that's come true. I owe so much to the sport of bodybuilding, and I hope as Mr. Olympia I can give back to the sport.
After the crowning, he started training again that very next week for the next Mr. Olympia, always keeping 1 step ahead of everybody else. And what Dorian had in store for next year was going to redefine the game once again. If 1992 proved a career turning point for Dorian, 1993 would be his breakthrough year. A period where so widely would he distance himself from the competition that this year's Olympia would be a battle for 2nd place. And his newly unveiled physique would send shockwaves throughout the bodybuilding world.
I could have come into the contest bigger than I did, but I was obsessed about having the size of a big heavyweight combined with the conditioning of a smaller, lighter bodybuilder, and I think that's what I brought. 92, when I won the first Mr. Olympia, I could see that I was really pretty much in contest shape about 6 weeks out from the 92 Olympia. But I kept dieting down and down now because I wanted to be super ripped, and I was conscious at that point Lee Haney was not competing. So I would be able to beat the other guys, Sean Ray, Vince Taylor, and so on size, even if I lost a bit of size. So I sacrificed size in 92 to bring in super condition. And what I realized looking back is, hey, I just sacrificed a lot of muscle coming in. So if I don't do that next year, I can come in much bigger.
The pinnacle, or what a lot of people felt like the pinnacle of bodybuilding even was that 1993 era where you put out those black and white photographs.
This was Kevin Horton again. Can you come down and take some pictures? Because I got some from last year that you took in the gym. I want to stand in the same spot in the gym, the same lights and everything. So it was just for my reference, really. He said, mate, I've developed them photos. I said, yeah, how do they look? He said, I'm going to bring them down to you. You're not going to believe this. He said, I'm going to send them to the magazine, to Flex magazine. That wasn't the original plan. It was just for me. That's why I still got my socks on, if you look. Weeder put them in the magazine. And by the way, Weeder didn't like the pictures. He didn't get it. He's like, it's not the correct lighting and the shadows. And I said, Joe, nobody gives a shit about that. Watch. And they became like most iconic pictures of myself. Peter McGough was the editor of Flex magazine. He was British, and all the guys that used to train in Venice, California, they used to go to the Weeder offices. So Peter, he said, when they come in, he said, have you seen the pictures of Dorian? No, we've got them. What does it look like? I said, I'd casually just drop them on the table and watch the face just drop, like demoralized. From that point, everyone was looking to get second place, and that was first for them. So they already mentally were beaten before the contest. Not that it mattered, because physically they were going to get beaten.
In the Atlanta Civic Center in Georgia, a multitude of athletes were preparing to beat the title holder. Sean Ray, Lee Labrada, Kevin Lavrani, and the new challenger, Flex Wheeler, who'd won the Ironman Invitational and the Arnold Classic in his first 2 pro appearances. Flex's symmetry and shape were a contrast to Dorian's density and size, and their clashing physiques made the 1993 Olympia a must-see. By that time, people hadn't really accepted Dorian's place on the scene yet, because he was still a new guy. When he'd first won the title, they thought he might just be a one-hit wonder. But 1993 was the year Dorian declared that he was here to stay. He presented a physique that no one had ever expected. His improved muscle mass, combined with the conditioning that he was known for already in 1992, made him look like a giant from another planet. There were quite a few big guys walking around this year, but none of them combined mass and shredding the way Dorian did. The judges placed Dorian Yates, Flex Wheeler, and Sean Ray in the top 3, and they were compared side by side. Even though Sean presented a respectable physique, the only real contender to Dorian was Flex. Flex had great symmetry and conditioning. Some judges described his physique as being almost cartoonish because of his incredible muscle roundness, proportion, and separation. But despite his great aesthetics, he was simply no match for Dorian's muscularity, which was in a league of its own.
And first place for the 2nd year in a row, Dorian Yates.
Despite his incredible showing that night, this wasn't to everyone's liking. Dorian was criticized for his bubble gut and excessive muscularity, with his most famous critic being Arnold Schwarzenegger. During the 1990s, Arnold criticized bodybuilding, which he believed privileged muscle mass over things like symmetry and appearance. For this reason, Arnold criticized Dorian at several turns for embodying this mass monster look. Arnold and those who championed the golden age of bodybuilding called for stricter drug testing protocols, which they believed would curb the excesses deemed to be ruining the sport.
Unless we change the judging procedure, and unless we do something about where they stop just using guys with the thickest neck and the biggest muscle, but not look as pleasing. Because look at the old days when Steve Reeves won, and you saw him on the beach. You say to yourself, I would love to have this guy's body. Wow, look at how beautiful this man looks. But that's not what you can say about those guys the day they win those competitions. Like for instance, so many of those guys have their stomachs sticking out. It used to be that you should have a V-shaped body.
Fans of the 1990s bodybuilders, on the other hand, claimed that Dorian was pushing the boundaries of what was possible. But regardless of these debates, Dorian had set the standards of bodybuilding for years to come. And everyone else had to either adapt or perish, because Dorian's Olympia domination was only getting started. If in 1993 the mass that Dorian came in with was a surprise to all, by 1994 everyone knew what they had to fight against, and they did all their best to surpass him. The 1994 Mr. Olympia was a clash between monsterism and classicism, but it didn't go off as planned. After finishing second last year with a more pleasing but less monstrous physique, #1 contender Flex Wheeler had his sights set on an Olympia rematch this year. But this hope would be short-lived, as he was absent from the contest after a horrendous car crash where he nearly suffered paralysis. Defending champ Dorian Yates also suffered his first muscle tears in preparation.
I had a bicep tear in 1994, 6 weeks before the contest. I believe anyone else would have dropped out. And I did think about it for a couple of days. Like, I was totally devastated. I'd won 92, I'd won in 93, and in 93 just raised the bar so high that, people couldn't believe it. And now, bang, I've got an injury that this is definitely possibly a career-ending injury. So I was just, for a day, I was devastated and like, I'm gonna have to drop out. There's no way I can do this. And then the positivists start to take over and say, well, how do you know that? How do you know you can't do it until you try?
And to make matters even worse, he had a stomach bug on the day of the contest and was holding water. I felt sick and bloated when I woke up, he said. Just a small stomach bug or even a cold can make a noticeable difference in a physique that is super lean, as the inflammation causes water retention. It was the opening Flex Wheeler could have seized to snatch the Sandow Trophy, but luckily for Dorian, fate had already intervened. That's why many thought that Sean Ray, who was at his career best, could have overtaken the champ when he was less than his best.
No longer am I doing it just for myself. I realize there's a lot of people pulling for me, supporting me. I'm trying not to let them down, but at the same time keep my head up and remember where I came from and keep my eye on where I'm going, and that is straight to the top of Mr. Olympia.
On one hand, you had the mass, thickness, and density of Dorian. On the other, you had the shape, symmetry, and aesthetics of Sean. Eventually, the top three would be Kevin Levrone, Sean Ray, and Dorian Yates. Kevin was a little too murky, clearly sweating out excess water as prejudging progressed. His back was also still a weakness, and if he was as crisp as he would go on to be the next year, he could have challenged Dorian for first place. At 29 this year, Sean was in his prime, and all his prime qualities were on display. Superb conditioning, proportionate development, elegant posing, deep quad separation, and the contest's best abs, which made some contend that he should have been declared the victor that night.
In second place, competitor number 7, Sean Ray.
A lot of people don't really know this, but this year I had a lot of problems with injuries and so on, and there was a couple of times I really thought it wasn't going to be possible for me to be here and be competing in the Mr. Olympia, but I persevered, I pushed through, and it makes this victory all the more sweeter. And I'll be back next year. I'll definitely be back next year and better than ever.
Dorian won his third title that night, but not without controversy. A lot of people point to 1994 as the year bodybuilding took a turn for the worse, when a belly-bloated, disproportionate mass monster defeated a smaller but tight-waisted, superbly proportioned classicist.
Forget the fact that I thought I should have beat Dorian Yates. I think that Dorian in 94 was just a little too sloppy. Listen, he was big. There's no question, you can't take that away. The color was running all off of his body. The bicep tear was very noticeable, but when he put his hands down, the obliques were hanging over the shorts. So for that matter, you gotta go with the one with the fewest flaws. Forget it that I'm not trying to say I'm perfect, but I had fewer flaws on the day, and this is where the sport of bodybuilding could have turned the corner and gone a totally different direction, which would have favored me. But I pretty much knew by the time I got to the finals that the people that were judging that show were not going to change their opinion, but they could have done the right thing, and I thought they didn't that year.
But that wouldn't stop Dorian from continuing his reign and coming in better shape than ever before the next year. Since the 1960s, the West Coast, specifically California, has been a hotbed of bodybuilding activity. For economically minded bodybuilders, it was also the headquarters of Joe and Ben Weider, the men responsible for creating the Mr. Olympia. And if Joe Weider liked you, it meant magazine covers, supplement deals, and paid appearances. So California offered elite training partners the chance to train at the sports mecca and money. Despite working for Weider, Dorian was against the idea of staying in America.
That's kind of why, one of the reasons that I stayed where I was in England. Although there was, some pressure for me to move to California. I was working for the Weider company. They would like me to be out there so they'd have more access to me and, do more photos. And then, like you say, you're in LA, full of hot chicks, full of parties, nice weather. You got Sean Ray, and these guys always out in California driving a Corvette by the beach. And it's nice, yeah, it's great. But we're not from there, we're not doing that. I was scared to relax, man, because if I relaxed a little bit and enjoyed it, maybe I'd just lose it. So I want to stay isolated, stay in UK, stay in Birmingham, where my gym was, and just keep my head down. That whole routine, which is like a training camp, which people might do for 2 or 3 months before a contest, I took that approach year round.
Nobody heard anything about you. You were quiet on your own island doing your thing. You were just coming and winning.
I didn't want anyone to hear anything about me. I didn't want anyone to know too much about me. It's part of my personality. I like my privacy, and it works psychologically as well. The guys say that to me, crazy ass, over there in England, and we don't know what you're doing, and we know that you're just pushing all the time. So we gotta keep pushing. We got this shadow looming over us.
The gym I train at is my own gym. I own the gym in England, and it's basically a very small basement gym, very hardcore, mostly free weights. We don't have any cardiovascular equipment or anything like that. The paint's coming off the walls and there's no showers, the toilets don't work. But there's a great atmosphere there. It's a hard working atmosphere.
I catch people all the time at the top of the stairs looking down because you couldn't actually see anything down there. It was just like you're going into a black hole. You could hear rock music, people screaming, weights banging, and a lot of people are intimidated just to step down the stairs. It was to my advantage that I was in the UK. I was in this little hole in the ground in Birmingham, and nobody saw me all year round. So this guy that you can't see, somehow, it's building like fear up in your mind because you can't see him, you don't know anything about him.
I called him the Shadow.
So you gave him the nickname?
Yeah, I gave him the name. You never saw him unless he was competing. And he never hung out with anybody. So that's why he's in the shadows, just waiting to pounce.
Dorian's absence from the lights gave him a much-needed advantage. And by 1995, everyone wanted to see how he evolved from his bicep injury. And evolve he did.
And this year, I've not necessarily come in any bigger, but I feel I've come in a lot better. I've come in more with better shape, better definition, better symmetry. All the other guys are playing my old game, I'm playing a new game.
I doubt if anybody trained harder than this guy. When you do a set, he do one for mama, the babies, everybody. And as I've heard, better than ever before, Mr. Dorian Yates.
This year, he stepped on the big stage with a conditioning that might have surpassed that one of '93. Sean Ray had been so close to #1 and wanted to take the crown this year.
Regardless of how many people support me, how many people think that I am already there, I need that trophy to solidify my mission.
And Kevin Levrone, having already come in second in '92 and third in '94, was eager to claim the throne for himself. The pre-judging brought the battle down to the final 4. Dorian Yates and Sean Ray once again, and a much improved Nasser El Sanbati and Kevin Levrone.
Fourth place, a check of $25,000. Competitor number 8, Sean Ray. In third place, Nasser El Sanbati.
Nasser replaced Ray in the top 3 after a few comparisons between him and Ray, while Kevin and Dorian battled for #1. The front double bicep was hotly contested between them, as Yates had half a bicep smaller, and Levrone always had his A game when it came to arms. The front lats spread was hands down won by Dorian. Nobody got close to his massive lats. The side chest pose was again a really close one, but Dorian's rock-solid conditioning and detailing gave him the edge. The back double bicep made Dorian shine, and he managed to hide his torn biceps surprisingly well. With a thick, wide back and a strong lower body, he took this round too. The side triceps round was again tight, as Levrone's arm size went against the conditioning, detail, and perfect pose of Dorian, which took the round by a narrow margin. The ab and thigh pose put Levroni's slimmer waist against Dorian's stronger, more developed muscular abdomen, the judges preferring the latter.
Second place, competitor number 18, Kevin Levroni. And the winner, for the 4th year in a row, receiving the largest check in bodybuilding history to date, $110,000.
All in all, the Shadow triumphed once again, taking home his 4th Mr. Olympia. Now everybody was starting to ask themselves if Dorian was even stoppable. In 1996, Dorian didn't have the problem he had training the year before of the recuperating bicep injury, so he was able to go full throttle in the gym. He expected to be in the best condition with an extra 4 pounds of quality muscle added to his already imposing physique.
This is my 8th Mr. Olympia. I've yet to win the title. I put my heart and soul into this one. I've been 2nd, I've been 3rd twice, I've been 4th, and I've been 5th. And I put, like I said, the heart and soul into this training, dedicated myself, refocused it, and now I believe that if I'm ever gonna win the Mr. Olympia from these mass monsters, I'm gonna win it solely on the fact that they wanna go a different direction with the look of bodybuilding.
Ladies and gentlemen, the reigning Mr. Olympia, Dorian Yates.
The 1996 Mr. Olympia was in many ways a replay of 1994. And as always, size, mass, and conditioning were preferred over symmetry and aesthetics combined with a smaller size. When it was all said and done, nobody could compete with Dorian's back, which helped win 3 rounds: front lat spread, back lat spread, and back double bicep. The side chest and triceps also going to Dorian. Even though Sean was more aesthetic, with neatly separated muscles and a better ab and thigh pose, it just wasn't enough to challenge the reigning champ.
To the 2nd place winner, Sean Ray. And in 1st place, Dorian Yates.
And with the 6th in sight, Dorian went straight back to work. He reanalyzed his Olympia physique and noticed he was flat due to over-dieting. So his goal was to show up for the German Grand Prix as lean as ever, and even sharper than 1995. It a stacked lineup including guys like Nasser El Sanbati, Kevin Levroni, Paul Dillette, Ronnie Coleman, and Vince Taylor. Dorian emerged as the winner, and the 6th Sandow seemed like it was only a matter of time. But things didn't go off as planned, and next year was just about to prove a whole lot harder. A bodybuilding magician of sorts, Dorian is one bodybuilder who could rise to the challenge, silence his detractors, and prevail, even if his training circumstances were less than ideal and the contest itself was one of controversy. Such was the case in 1994, and the same scenario would happen again in 1997, in the most controversial Olympia in Dorian's career. Held in Long Beach, California, the 1997 Mr. Olympia was hyped as the dying vestiges of Dorian Yates' reign. Despite winning the previous year, some of his competitors clearly felt that he could be overtaken.
I think the fans are screaming for something different, basically because the freakiness doesn't last long, it starts to wear off. The challenge has been made, it was set down last year, it was set down in 94. I think I come full circle, focused, trained hard, and was very, very disciplined. So if the champion didn't do his homework, I'm coming to take my title.
Everyone was wondering whether Sean Ray, Nasser El Sanbati, or Flex Wheeler could beat Dorian on the grandest stage of them all. Before the Olympia, Flex was being touted as the prime contender to dethrone the champ, thanks in part to a series of strong showings in other competitions. But what no one knew is that Dorian was going into the contest with yet another injury. Only this time, it was even more serious than the previous one.
And that's, the second injury was career-ending. It was 3 weeks before the Mr. Olympia, tricep tendon tear on the left elbow here, and literally now I couldn't train. Nothing, no weight training for 3 weeks. And it was the same thing, like, you can't compete, you're gonna have to drop out. I didn't tell anybody, because I didn't want it to become public knowledge, because then when I went on stage, people would be really looking for it. So all I did for that contest the last 3 weeks was cardio, no weight training. You know, for a bodybuilder, that's very strange. Yeah. I had a friend that was a physio. We had, it's like a big balloon device that goes over your arm, and it inflates and deflates, so it's constantly pumping all the time to try to move that fluid out of the injury. It was still a bit black and blue actually, and I tried to cover it with a tan, but you see very, very slightly. I went into that contest was in a state that I'd never been before, feeling weak and vulnerable. Not even being able to practice my posing because I was scared to pose too hard. I didn't know the extent of the injury till I went to the States. They said basically you got like a 95% detachment of the tendon, so it's hanging on by a little bit, so you better be very careful. So even posing I was nervous, and I didn't carry that energy that I normally had of like invincibility, of power, of energy. Chris Cormier that used to compete against me, a flex wheeler, they said they could feel almost like a force field around me. The energy was so high. But that's how I felt, and going to 97, I didn't feel like that at all. So not my usual confidence and level going into that at all. It was very hard for me to focus.
Just like in 1994, this injury was the golden opportunity Flex Wheeler could have seized to dethrone the champ. But the same scenario would play out again with a slight twist. In the days leading up to the Olympia, Flex shocked bodybuilding fans by announcing his withdrawal from that year's competition.
I was involved in a situation Thursday. It didn't turn out good for me. I was hospitalized. I made a decision amongst myself to mask everything.
48 hours before the event, he arrived at the host hotel with his left hand bandaged and claimed that 6 days prior, he'd been involved in an unsuccessful carjacking at the hands of nunchuck and gun-wielding assailants. Flex, a Taekwondo black belt himself, decided to fight his assailants instead of surrendering, suffering enough injuries to exclude him from the competition. Over time, this story got twisted to refer to his assailants as ninjas. Following the incident, rumors circulated that he'd fabricated the story to avoid competing against Dorian, as some skeptics theorized he didn't peak at the correct time. However, Flex Wheeler pulling out of the competition would only be the beginning of the controversy. Ready to take the reigning champ down at his most vulnerable was the Professor Nasser El Sanbati.
So this year I will have probably 275 pounds, and I think it doesn't mean that I'm smaller. I think I look even bigger, I'm sharper, and I'm straightened more than ever. My back developed more, I have more separation, more quality. Also my arms got bigger, and the same I can say about my thighs, my legs. I think just in overall I improved. Nevertheless, that I'm competing with 5 pounds less than at last year.
By 1997, Nasser had worked his way into genuine contention for the Mr. Olympia title, as exemplified by 5 pro show wins and 6 top 3 placements, including 3rd place at both the 95 and 96 Mr. Olympias before being disqualified from that placing in the 96 after drug testing. But this year, he was a legitimate threat to bodybuilding's biggest prize. Nasser entered the competition with a much improved physique, coming in larger and leaner than before, and still possessing his famous symmetrical midsection. And when the two men stepped on stage, it looked like a new champion would be crowned. He rivaled Dorian in terms of sheer size while keeping an aesthetic quality few could match. The pre-judging for 1997 had put in the top positions Dorian's traditional competitors, Kevin Levrone, Sean Ray, and Nasser El Sanbati.
In 3rd place, to Sean Ray.
From the top 4, the final showdown came down to Nasser and Dorian. Nasser was at the top of his career, looking great, even outclassing an injured Dorian in some of the poses. The big advantage Dorian had was his famously large back, which rarely failed to impress. But the pain from his torn triceps severely hampered his posing routine, somewhat mitigating any advantage that he had. But when it came time for the winner to be announced, it must have felt like deja vu throughout the arena.
In 2nd place, Nasser El Sanbati.
Depending on your point of view, this was either the story of Dorian surviving Nasser's onslaught to become a 6-time Mr. Olympia, or of Nasser being robbed in yet another controversial Olympia decision. Either way, it was the end of the Englishman's reign and bodybuilding career.
I had surgery after the contest to reattach the tendon, and it was successful in that it reattached. But the surgeon told me the tendon was very badly torn, and some of the muscle was torn as well. So not only was it functionally weak, it looked a little different as well.
Maybe 97 was the time for me to do my last contest, and the injury just kind of forced that point. I do remember starting my prep for the Olympia in 97, And somehow I didn't have the enthusiasm that I had previously. It was starting to become like a job. And I was starting to think, what am I going to do after this? Something inside me was telling me, like, you need to change direction.
But after the surgery and a couple of months rehab, and then I'll start training, it was pretty obvious to me that there was a big strength imbalance now between the left and right side, which made it impossible to train. That was it. My decision was made, and now this was traumatic because this was a decision out of my hands. I went into a really deep depression, to be honest. And it wasn't just the retirement, forced retirement from bodybuilding. There was other factors in my life that were going on, but they all seemed to happen at the same time. I almost didn't know who I was without this all-encompassing goal. It's gone. I'm not, what am I going to do now? Really, what am I going to do, and who am I?
After retirement, Dorian seems to have found himself again. After leaving the world of bodybuilding behind, he embarked on a spiritual journey, one that emphasizes yoga, Pilates, marijuana, and hallucinogens.
And a lot of people ask you now, Dorian, do you even lift?
Yeah, no, I don't even lift, man. It's true, I don't even lift.
He was, and continues to be, a controversial figure in bodybuilding. One who refused to train the way most people trained, refused to train where most people trained, and refused to look the way most people looked. And for better or worse, he single-handedly moved bodybuilding from the aesthetic era into the era of the mass monster, evolving the sport in a way no one before him ever could.
I do have a reputation for being real serious and never smiling, especially on stage. But what people got to realize is when I'm on stage, when I'm in the gym, that's my job. And to me, you know, it is serious. I take that seriously. And